It's very hard to love when you're in survival mode. It's very hard to love when you're in your head, right? Love is depth, it's feeling, it's safety, it's all these beautiful things.
Masculine energy, feminine energy, we all embody both. It's not gender specific or anything like that. We all have both of them.
All emotions are messengers, they're not dictators. Fear just means my body doesn't feel safe. It doesn't mean I need to run away from it. It means, and let me understand what I'm operating in so I can remove all obstacles that are keeping me from deep connection.
The feminine wants to know that she can be held and not be scared that he is going to run away, that he's going to stay present with her.
Fear-based living versus love-based living. Fear-based relationships versus love-based relationships. I'm going to say this really bluntly. We cannot have real powerful breakthroughs without love. Welcome to the first episode of Love Uncensored. My name is Henry Ammar.
My name is Terrin Ammar.
And we did not practice this intro. So this is the very first.
We don't practice, we just do it.
Terrin and I were talking about how we want to make this podcast run. So you're here for the very first one, if you're live or if you're listening or watching. And we just want to make it conversational. There's an outcome for every single episode. Terrin and I, just to give you some background, as fundamentally what we do personally, my name is Henry. I've studied human behavior for 28 plus years. I'm obsessed with it. Everything from trauma to polarity to peak performance to unconscious mind, and just been obsessively studying it since I was 17 years old. I love helping people. And when Terrin and I got together, we did so much work in relationships, which we'll talk about. And I realized that there are just main principles that as soon as you apply them, just doors open and things shifted. And I know they did for me. So that's a little bit about me.
Yeah. And my name's Terrin. And so one of the things that, or actually a question that was asked to us right before we started was, how did we decide to do this? And for me, for us to do this podcast was, we really want to create a space that shows what extraordinary love can be like, and that it is possible, because there's a lot of information out there and there's a lot of people doing podcasts on relationships, but we're also love is not so hard. Love should be amazing and beautiful. And there's tools and beautiful breakthroughs that you can have to create that experience in love and relationships. So
it's not always roses, but when we understand the principles of how to elevate, then everything shifts. We decided to call it Love Uncensored because as this evolves, we're going to get a lot more real and honest and talk about things that you probably wouldn't normally hear Henry talk about on his own thing or Terrin talk about on his own thing. All things relationships, whether you're single or whether you're in a relationship, and whatever your direction is in that. And it's funny, we were looking at different topics. I know this one's not the subject, but I think our third episode is going to be called How Your Nervous System is Cock-Blocking Your Love Life.
Which happened to be the number one most
requested
episode
but it's
when
just,
I posted it.
It's probably not super appropriate, but it's kind of true, right? Like if you're in a certain space, what does it do to your love life? So the first episode we're going to talk about is the masculine, the feminine, and how polarity creates the love that you've really desired and the love that you've really been starving for. I'm glad there's an audience here, but who here really believes that when love is aligned in your life, when you love yourself, when you have love in your life, everything else expands, right? Completely. And I know for me, it's I grew to a place in my life, and I'll tell you a little bit about our backstory. I tell Terrin this, I say, you know what? On our first date, what did I tell you? What was one of the first things I told you?
He said if we would have met 2 months earlier, he would have ruined it.
Absolutely. So if I would have met 2 months before, I would have ruined it. Why? Because for me, I know that there's a lot of external strategies out there, but external strategies without true internal transformation doesn't work, right? In relationships or in everything. And relationships can be connecting, or they could bring out, as everybody here knows, our biggest traumas, our biggest fears. They're such a mirror for us. And so when they do that, it's an opportunity to evolve and to heal if it's done properly. And so I had gone through all these relationships, and there was one day in my life where I was like, you know what? I want to comb through my nervous system. I want to comb through my mind, everything. I want to see the patterns I'm running from my parents' relationship. I want to see the patterns that I'm running from the hurt I've experienced in my past. And if you believe in generational trauma, I want to run patterns of what is in my system that I've inherited, And so I remember it was October 1st. I said, this month is my month of complete diving in. I dove in every day. I read the books. I did all the spiritual things. I got a coach. I was really honest with myself. I started writing down all my relationships, understanding all the things. And we're going to talk about this, but when you're single, you have to have non-negotiables, right? What are your non-negotiables? And I'm just going to say this. Whenever you compromise one of your non-negotiables or two of them is when you usually get hurt the most. Because you're oh my gosh, this person has almost everything that I absolutely must have. And the pain that's been shown the most has been when we compromise that. And so I said, what are my non-negotiables? And then I asked myself the question, am I acting within those non-negotiables myself? Am I operating from a fear-based state, an anxious energy when it came to relationships? What are my patterns? And I realized October 26th, I remember the date. I sat there and I was like, oh shoot, I'm running the best and the worst of my parents' relationship. And I realized that all of those fear-based patterns created a lack of, we believe in masculine and feminine energy. We believe everybody has both. We believe there's an integration. You have your core, and we'll go into that. And I realized that I was not operating in my core energy, and it wasn't creating the proper attraction to the right people. And also I wasn't the most safe, congruent place for people in my relationships. And October 26th, I had a breakthrough. 2 weeks later, I met Terrin, and the rest is history. And so I really believe that this work that we're going to be talking about on this podcast and in masculinefeminine.com and all these things is we've lived it, we've wrestled with it, and we'll talk a little bit about our stories and we don't like to use the word trauma, but Dr. Frank Anderson on my podcast said, instead of using trauma, you could use the word overwhelming life experience. So any overwhelming life experience you have, your body will adapt going forward. So that's a little bit of like my perspective on how this kind of started with us.
Yeah, it's all in relation to so we have masculinefeminine.com. And this work is just, we're so deeply passionate about it because of the way that it changed our life in relationship. And similar to Henry, he had a breakthrough October 26th. And I also had a breakthrough just around that time. I don't know the exact day, darn it, but I did have a breakthrough close to his. And it just goes to show that when two people are doing the work and you have those breakthroughs, what can happen? Because like he said, it was over from the start. Actually, our first weekend date where we got to see each other, I never, if you know my background and my history and coming from an abusive relationship, I never would have said this, but I was flying home and I have a screenshot of the text message. And I texted to my mom and I said, just in case this happens, I may just marry this man. And it was because the polarity that we had between each other from the very beginning, from like just the safety, the trust, the openness was so, like that energy and that pull was so different than anything that I had ever experienced, which also was kind of scary at the same time. For those of you who have not experienced it, once you do experience it, it can be a little different and a little scary, but in a good way. So
yeah. So let's dive into polarity.
Yeah.
Like we're gonna make a bold statement. Like polarity is when you don't have polarity, it'll take you away from intimacy. It'll make you not attracted to the other person. You will discover more arguments, more fear-based environments in your relationship. So whenever you feel a lack of connection in any way, shape, or form, it's usually, you can always point back to the concept that we're going to fundamentally talk about today. But when you experience polarity, as Terrin will describe it, it is the most magical, beautiful thing. And I think it's what we're really seeking for, and it's magnetic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, Henry and I work with a lot of couples, and every single one who has like the big tension point, it is because of a lack of polarity, because they're out, either they're both in the same like masculine energy or, same feminine energy, or vice versa, where they're operating separately from their core energies. So to describe what polarity is, which I think a lot of you probably know what it is, but for those listening who may not know the fundamentals. So masculine energy, feminine energy, we all embody both. It's not gender specific or anything like that. We all have both of them. We all also have our core energy. That core energy is the one that we thrive in, that we grow in, and creates the optimal attraction. Like if you think of attraction, that's the one that you operate in, that you need the opposite opposing energy. So for me, my core energy is feminine. I did not always operate in my feminine because I very much had been in unsafe scenarios that created these behaviors that forced me into more of a masculine state. Henry's core energy is masculine, and he can share more of his story as well, but same for him, of the opposite. He operated more passively. And so in both of our individual worlds, we were attracting the wrong partners because we did not embody what that was. So masculine energy, you can think of that forward moving energy. It's point A to point B. If you think of the anatomy, even in the reproductive system of men and women, what happens for men? It's point A to point B, straight line, it's arrow, it's energy going this way. For women, it's more of a circle. It's energy that circulates. What do? We live in seasons. We live in cycles. Okay, we're much more in flow. I am very much in flow. Sometimes Henry's masculine is like, what is happening? I need structure. And I'm like, whoa, let's just, But the masculine is very much structure, safety, certainty. I've used this analogy before, but if you think of a glass of water, it's the best analogy, is the glass itself represents the masculine. It's the structure, it's the safety, it's the certainty, and it holds the water, which is the feminine. And the feminine is very free-flowing and beautiful and magnificent and all of the things, and can be chaos. Like the water is about to spill out of the glass, but it's still held in the certainty and the safety of the masculine. And so the feminine itself is also very much connected to emotion. It's the being, and it's not the being I'm just sitting on the couch. It's who am I being in my relationship? Who am I being in the world? And very much connected to intuition, that emotional bodied being as well.
Yeah. And when we talk about polarity, there's polarity within relationships and there's polarity within ourselves. Mm-hmm. And so there's an integration in our experiences that happens when we could integrate all of ourselves and not feel like we're a one-trick pony. If you think about it as a keyboard, like sometimes I got to go in my masculine, like I got to get it done. I got to go in, I get it done. Sometimes Terrin, she'll go in and she has to get things done and she's in her masculine, she's got to do what she got to do. And sometimes when I'm in feeling or when I want to connect with somebody, especially in the career that I have in helping people, I want to be able to dance and play the right chords on the piano, and I'm not just a one-trick pony. I want to understand the full spectrum of who I am. And it's very magical when you get to integrate that. What polarity actually is the magnet. If you think of the magnet, there's a positive and a negative, right, when we're in school. And if they're opposites, they get really, really attracted to each other. And they're right there. But when they're positive, there's a lot of resistance to it. And so one of the things we're going to talk a lot about is fear-based living versus love-based living, fear-based relationships versus love-based relationships, understanding ourselves. If you're in fear, your body's in survival mode, right? It says, I don't feel safe. That's all fear means, is I don't feel safe. And so if I don't feel safe, what is my body doing? It's in preservation. It's very hard to love when you're in survival mode. It's very hard to love when you're in your head, right? Love is depth, it's feeling, it's safety, it's all these beautiful things. And as we dive into more of what masculine energy is and feminine energy is and how to integrate that within yourself and how to go from fear-based living to love-based living and get congruence and everything that we're gonna say going forward, all emotions are messengers, they're not dictators. Fear just means my body doesn't feel safe. It doesn't mean I need to run away from it. It means, what am I experiencing? Let me compassionately get curious, as Dr. Gabor Mate says, and let me understand what I'm operating in so I can remove all obstacles that are keeping me from deep connection, right? Because what's the goal? The goal is to love the freaking hell out of ourselves, literally, right? And love the hell out of our partners, literally, so we can develop heaven, whatever your definition of heaven is. But if we are not aware and we're not completely honest, I'm going to say this really bluntly, we cannot have real powerful breakthroughs without radical love and radical honesty. We got to be honest with ourselves, but we've got to be extremely loving to ourselves because you cannot beat yourself up into healing. So as we go through this podcast, as we talk about things, the goal is shame is the opposite of healing. It's the worst thing that we could ever have. And I accept it because it's trying to keep me safe. I will love it and I will heal it, but recognizing that shame is worse than anything else that we could protect. But when we feel shame, let's go lean into the shame and recognize this is really important, you guys, because we're going to dive into some really powerful stuff. And the goal is to grow. And in order to grow, we have to be aware. And sometimes when we're aware, what's the first thing that people do is they beat themselves up. They push back on themselves. They resist. But Tony Robbins says, what you resist will persist. So the goal is to lean in with love and say, oh my gosh, instead of something's wrong with me, this is an opportunity to step into more freedom, more love, and more energy into my life. And so I really want to emphasize that because Dr. Stephen Porges says, there are no such thing as bad behaviors, only adaptive ones. So all the patterns that I ran with in relationships were because I adapted. And I'm going to give you that example. If I was very passive, I was very much a people pleaser, I would not really say how I felt. There's a difference between pleasing your partner out of fear and pleasing them out of love. Oh, what do you need? Oh, what do you, yes, versus like, I'm here. What do you really, like, there's a presence, there's a love, there's an energy there. And I used to be the first one, very fear-based pleaser, all these things, like, what do you need? And I was in my head and I was checking the boxes off versus like getting into the depth of my soul of this is where love really, really comes in. It was because, interestingly enough, when we understand trauma and we understand overwhelming life experiences, when we're honest and lovingly honest with ourselves, we can have compassion. And the second I heard there's no such thing as bad behaviors, only adaptive ones, I was like, where did this people-pleasing passive behavior in relationships come from? And growing up, I love my father, amazing soul, very sensitive. But when I would speak up at home, what would happen is it would dysregulate him, and sometimes it would lead to him throwing something or screaming at the top of his lungs. So as a kid, what did I want the most? Safety and love, right? We want safety and love as children. But if I spoke up, what did I lose? Safety, because I thought he was really upset, and love, because he's mad at me now. So I learned in order to be safe and to be loved, I have to go with the flow, not rock the boat, not say anything. And I used to be so mad at myself before. I can't believe I'm passive. I can't look, how am I supposed to step into masculinity if my body programming is a people pleaser? But the second I realized that, instead of having shame over myself, I had compassion and love. I did the work. I overcame it. I literally, if you know me, I'm pretty straightforward now. I'm much more bold than I've ever been in my life, and I'm reaching a whole different level, which is going to be really fun. I told Terrin, was it 6 months ago? I was like, just so you know, I had another breakthrough, and I'm going to be a lot more bold, but I have to pre-frame it.
Yes, and his boldness is very hot.
I share that because as we do this podcast, as we talk about polarity, as we talk about fear-based versus love-based, the goal is for you to recognize, how can I grow? How can I expand? But not from a place of we're falling short, from a place of I get to add more love to my life. I get to grow more. I get to be more free. And so polarity, when we understand the dynamics, is when I'm living in my essence, in my core, which is masculinity. When I'm in that space from a love-based place, I create more safety for her, which allows her to be more in her feminine, and vice versa. And so polarity is the foundation. It really, really is. So we invite you to really ask yourself, as we go through these podcast episodes, as you discover, as you learn these principles of healing within yourself, how do you create healing in your relationship? How do you establish and step into the dynamic of all the things that you want in your life, where when I need to step into masculine energy, boom, I'm there. I can call it out. As Tony Robbins says, how do you know a dog is yours? Give it a name and it comes when you call it, right? And how do I know when I get to step into deep compassion and almost a flow state where it's not my core, but I get to do it because I know it's what's needed? I can call it in and I can know that is masterful. And from a leadership perspective, the most influential person in the room is the most flexible. So you want to lead with love, you got to be flexible and you got to be aware. So you're not leading from fear, but you're leading from presence, love, and power under control.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm also going to add to kind of a misconception about polarity. You'll hear a lot of people say, oh, well, you need to balance your masculine and your feminine. And that's not true. You don't want balance, because if I'm balanced in my masculine and my feminine, where am I? Like, you think of a teeter-totter, you're right here. You're neutral. You're going to be in that neutral state. I don't want to be balanced. I want to be able to live and thrive in my core energy, which is my feminine. And Henry wants to do the same in his masculine. So it's more of like the 80-20 rule, which is like in all things in life, right? It's like I 80% want to be able to operate in my feminine, while also, just like Henry's saying, I can call in that other energy if I need to. Like, I can call it in when I need it. If I need to go into a meeting, if I need to get things done, and feeling safe to take action and moving forward in that. I want to make sure everybody knows it's like, you don't have to, it's not a balance, right? It's playing the keys on the piano. It's what does the melody call for in this moment?
We'll dive into what core masculine and core feminine. I'm going to ask her a couple questions about our relationship just to tell stories, and we'll tell stories about people we've worked with. So if you're watching or listening, or if you're here, you might say, I don't know if I'm core masculine or core feminine. I'm not really, really sure. And there's a way you can, guess. And sometimes you're like, well, sometimes I feel more like this and sometimes I feel more like this. And it'll align and you'll see. And some people are more hardcore core masculine. But one thing I will say, what masculinity is not like, just because I'm strong and I'm aggressive and I'm this and I'm that, this is what masculine energy is like. It's absolutely not that, right? Because how many people do you see? They're like, yeah, masculine energy. Yeah, let's go. It's like masculinity's number one thing is it creates safety. Emotional, mental, spiritual, physical safety, sexual safety. And you will seek the advancement and protection of everything around you. I will protect you from the lion. I will enhance your dreams, and I will be a magnifier of your life. That is my core. Like literally, that is my core. That's what I want to do. And so if you ever are not creating safety, you're not operating in your masculine, right? I don't care how strong you are. I don't care how much money you make. I don't care what you do. I don't care how much you're providing, because if you're not providing safety in all fronts, then in that area, you are not being core masculine. And let me just say this. If I am not able to provide and protect and to be there for her, what is that going to do for the feminine? What is she going to have to step into? Her masculine. And now you have two hunters. And a hunter and hunters, they don't really mate. They're like, that's my bro, or that's my sis, or whatever you guys do, or whatever. That's my, whatever. And so when we're both in hunter mode, there's not really that deep attraction. And the masculine obviously is giving. If we want to use it in terms of men and women, it's like if you think about how is life created, the masculine gives, the woman receives, things are made, life is given, right? But when you're in your masculine, you give. You want to serve, you want to give. And there's three core things you absolutely need to be in your masculine. If I were to break it down, these are the three things, and we'll go into feminine a little bit more. One, I'll state them, and then I'll describe them, and it'll make so much sense at the end of this. Power, love, and presence, right? Power under control, not just power, right? So if you think about it, I'm going to go primal for a second. But if I'm here protecting someone from a lion, and Terrin's like, is Henry going to protect me from the lion? Let's just take power out. If I'm loving and I'm present, but I don't have my power under control, is she going to feel safe from the lion? Absolutely not, because I can't protect her. I haven't tapped into the strength that's within me. Or I tapped into the strength and now I don't have control over it, and guess what? I became the lion. Or what if I have power and I have presence, but I don't have love, and instead of love, I'm operating in fear? What happens? My power is now used from a fear-based way. I become the lion again. Or if I'm avoidant, what do? I leave, and she doesn't feel safe. But if I have power and love, but I'm not present, and I'm always gone, and my mind is always in another place, even if the lion showed up, she's like, he doesn't even know the lion's here. So, but when you have all three, it's like, whew, I can feel safe in my essence. This isn't just in relationships. This is in leadership. This is in everything that you do. When you show up in your core essence, in a love-based way, in power, love, and presence, you create safety around you, and that creates healing. That creates influence, right? How many people here have ever been in the presence of somebody who is so loving, has their power under control, and is so present with you? Like, has anyone experienced even a glimpse of that ever? Right? And how does it feel? It feels different, doesn't it? You feel like I can feel safe. Because we're going to nerd out for 12 seconds and then we'll pass it to the feminine. All of us have something called neuroception. Your subconscious mind, your mind is always looking for cues of safety or danger. Always. Right now. Like your mind is aware of all these different things. So if a noise happened, what are you going to do? You're probably going to look. Or you're aware of the lights, you're aware of everything on. There's so much our unconscious mind is processing at a moment. So if it's processing even micro expressions on people's face, that's how crazy it is. Right? So if you're around somebody else and they're living in like a fear-based state, they don't have control of their power, they're not operating in love, or they're not present, what are you going to perceive in that place? You're going to feel like this doesn't feel the most safe. So maybe I should be a little bit on guard. Do you think that's going to create less polarity or more polarity? Less, right? But when we can tap into who we are, and this is what's cool about this work is not just about relationships, it's going to strengthen the freaking heck out of you to being the best version of yourself. And that's what relationships are meant to be. Terrin makes me a better man, 100%, right? And it's not perfect. We're going to share our bumpy stories and things like that. But I want to talk about core masculine. If that's your core, or even if you tune into it, that's where it stems from.
I love that. So the feminine, which by the way, even just hearing him talk about masculine energy, I'm just like, oh yes, because I believe in masculine energy so much, and it's just changed my life. And it's just, I can for sure say that any woman listening to this or even in the room, it's like the power of masculinity. I hope and wish that all men understood like the power of what that feels like for a woman, because especially for me, and even working with the women that I work with, I can't tell you how many women come to me and they just say, I just want a man to hug me and tell me everything's going to be okay. And that's what the masculine energy is. Like, it's the container, it's the safety, it holds us in times that we may not be able to fully hold ourselves, and contains it. And is also the protector. Like, as you were talking, I was thinking it's also the protector of our relationship. And one of the sexiest things I'll say about you is you can see patterns so well. And if you see certain things that might be like, oh, well, this might be happening and whatever in our relationship, you'll address it in such a loving way. It's like truly that loving leader, that because you are protecting the relationship in that way. And it's like, I don't know if it's Allison Armstrong, but one of the reframes that I had, even in us dating, when you would bring things to me like, hey, we need to talk about this. And my nervous system would be like, what's happening? I would think to myself, instead of like, this is scary, I would ask myself, I'd say, what is he protecting me from? Because I know that the masculine is the protector. The masculine energy, that's what it is doing, because it doesn't want to see me get hurt, or like you don't want to see me hurt, and you don't want to see the relationship fail, or whatever that might be. But just thinking of the protector within is really cool.
And before we get to feminine, the essence of the feminine, which we talk about, I want to ask you a question, and maybe this is good to know, is I want to ask both. One is, when have you felt the most masculine energy from me that's made you feel, allowed you to be who you are? And then is there an opposite? Is there been a moment where you didn't feel the polarity between us? And what was that moment? I'm like,
oh my gosh,
share whatever you want.
What moment, right? Like, that's so hard. Which also, by the way, I'll probably cry a lot on this podcast in a good way. I'll probably cry happy tears. I will cry happy tears every day for this man because I love him so much. Okay, the first one that pops in my mind, obviously, is our first date, because I had just poured my heart and soul out to you and thinking you were going to run for the hills, but you stayed so present and so grounded, and you stayed. Like, I think the feminine wants to know that she can be held and not be scared that he is going to run away, that he's going to stay present with her and hold her in that. And that's what you did at that time. But you do it all the time, every day. Every day is just the safety that you create in every aspect.
Is there like a specific moment that you look at and you're like, man, this one moment made me really feel like, oh shoot, I feel safe, I feel seen, I feel heard, I feel like I could be every part of me. Is there something that sticks out specifically?
Besides our first date? Oh my gosh.
So specifically with our first date, I'm just gonna say it, because Terrin's had a lot of experiences in her past where she was in a relationship that was abusive. The guy that was supposed to be her protector pulled a gun on her, and there's a lot of instances in her past. So naturally, what is that going to do for her? It's going to put her in a hypervigilant state, right? She's going to have to protect herself. So she's going to have to take care of her girls. She's going to have to do all these things. And are men safe? All the things that come up when you experience these things. It's like, oh my gosh, like the person, I trusted someone to protect me, and instead they became the one that, was the least safe for me, right? It's interesting because she was sitting here telling me I got girls and this is what happened to me and blah, blah, blah. And she's totally crying and just going all out. And it was interesting because I normally would never say this. I would never say this on a first date, you guys. Like, you can think I'm crazy that I said this. But I thought, okay, hold space. One of the best things I could do is hold space. And I understood this concept, which we'll get into, called holding the trash can, where I was like, I know she's letting everything out. And my goal is just to be present, be loving, and have power under control. And so for me, I tuned in. What's the best thing I could do for her at this very moment? And then all of a sudden, she was done. And I would never say this on the first date, guys, but something said to me it was God, like spirit, whatever you believe, intuition, was like, tell her that as long as she's here next to you, you got her. She's safe. And I was like, hey, I said, and she was like, when the more you talk about something, the more you get into your emotions. So at that point, she's really in like her there's tensity, and she's crying. She's like, and she's scared, like this guy's gonna run, because I don't know why I'm telling him all this. And I could feel all the things, right? And I'm watching her face, and I was like, oh my gosh, she's like, her body's so tight. And I said, hey, as long as you're here, I said, I got you. You're safe. And she went from this to like, I
physically like
she literally just like,
him, just,
like, and I was like, oh, hi, and there was a sense of safety where she was like, oh my gosh, like, and what she said to me was, you want to say I wasn't thinking about, do you remember what you said? I wasn't thinking about.
Usually, if I was to share that story, which it's a very deep personal story that at that time I was a little scared to share it. If I was to share it, they usually went into, oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened, and that person and this person, and pointed to all these external things. But instead, he turned the focus to me in that moment. Like he was present with me to make sure that I felt safe, that he was there with me and validating me and my experience and not giving any attention to anything else other than that.
Because to me, of course, like as a guy, I'm like, I will demolish that person, you know?
in that voice
but
too.
for me, it was like, there's a beautiful soul in front of me that doesn't feel safe. And this is such a big statement. Every form of communication is a cry for help or an act of love. Every form of communication is a cry for help or an act of love, meaning if someone's not in a state of love, their body is not feeling safe. And so I could see this beautiful person in front of me that's been through a lot that is sitting here wanting, what does she really need? And that's what's so beautiful about relationships and polarity is we get to help each other heal, and we get to love each other, and we get to help each other grow. And if we can approach life in that way where we can operate from a love-based place, a present place, everything just shifts.
Yeah, which I feel like I should say, because you just said like it helps us heal. And I think it's important to know that you don't have to be fully healed to be in relationship, and that there is healing that takes place in relationship. Like when Henry and I met, we both were on our own journeys of healing, and then we came together, and then our healing, it just individually in our own disconfirming experiences with each other. Like for me, it enhanced and catapulted me in my journey as well, healing and that co-regulation.
And so to tie it up, will you go through feminine?
Yeah.
The feminine space.
So I want to talk about the needs of the feminine for those who don't know what those are. So simply put, the needs of the feminine are to feel safe, to feel seen, and to feel understood. And the key thing to remember is that it's a feeling. So it's so much, she has to feel those things, and it's feeling safety, not just, oh, I'm, whatever voice Henry used to talk about masculinity, the fake kind, but it's safety emotionally, mentally, spiritually. You have the best smile. Sorry, when he smiles at me, I can't not mention it, but it's safety spiritually, mentally, sexually, and physically, financially. There's a lot of different safeties that in providership, because it is providership from the masculine to the feminine. So safety, and then feeling seen, like you see me. That's one of the greatest things I think in our relationship is the first time I truly felt seen, of like, you didn't just see me of who I was in front of you, like you saw me to my soul and my spirit. You saw my aspirations, like everything that I wanted to be, that maybe I was a little scared to step into, and you elevated me in that, and you helped create safety for me to step further into that.
Commercial break from the needs, because this is really important. One of the greatest characteristics of the masculine is awareness. And so if I see Terrin and feeling in her, I know her core is feminine, right? So if I see her in her masculine, I go up to her and I say, hey, are you working? She says, yes. I'm like, do your thing. Because what is the masculine? You got to go. But if she says no, I know she doesn't feel safe. And so I want to see what she's experiencing and create that for her. So awareness is so beautiful. It's not just for the masculine, but it's so beautiful to be able to understand someone's core and then understand what they need at that moment.
Yeah, which is also really funny because randomly one of my favorite feminine embodiment songs will happen to turn on in the living room if he sees me like getting into that masculine energy, because he knows I'm just going to bounce right back into my feminine. It's the awareness.
Hacks.
Yeah, good job. I love it. So feeling seen, like it's so important. And then feeling understood, of being able to, there's nothing worse as a woman to try to express something and then it's just totally dismissed or, walked over or
because we do want to fix things, right? Like
yes.
We're fixed, like if you're core masculine, like you do want to fix things. And so it's like, what do we know? I already know what you need before you finish your sentence.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I already
and there's
know.
a deeper, like the feminine is depth, remembering that it goes much deeper than just the surface level. Like the feminine is very much like the ocean, right? It's beautiful and there's a lot of depth to it. So for example, if I was to be upset, not that this has happened, but like the trash, like taking out the trash, or if that is something within relationships we see of, oh, he didn't take out the trash. It's really not about taking out the trash. There's something deeper to that. It's having the awareness to understand that I would love for you to take out the trash.
Because it means this and this and this and this and this, right?
It means you love me. It means you care about
You're aware
what I want. You see these things. It's a different level of understanding as opposed to just like, oh yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. And it takes a lot of awareness, to be honest. Like it takes a lot of very deep intention, because if I were just to operate with my natural state, is like, no, I'm going to fix it. Like, just, you don't have to tell me the whole story. I'm going to fix it right away. We're going to go on. We're going to move on. We don't have to waste time. And so,
And also the feminine, just to talk about the feminine, because I want to ask Henry a question here too, kind of the same question, but the feminine is expression. And, we can talk probably a whole nother episode about deconstructing what true femininity is, what beliefs we developed and identities we developed about femininity. But, the feminine is authenticity and expression, like fully expressed in who you are truly, not what society has told you to be, but who I believe, God created you to be. And that is truly what becomes the magnet to attracting your partner, especially that if you're feminine and you want that masculine man. So my question to Henry would be, when is the time, or when are you most, it doesn't have to be a specific time, but when are you most just like a witness to me in my feminine that you're like, oh my gosh, like that's so hot.
Yeah, I already know this
so
answer.
Sexy.
It's funny. So one thing with Terrin, when I know she's feeling safe and in her essence, she is so much in her flow. Like we're at the gym and literally sometimes like I see her dancing in the mirror and then she turns around, she sees me and she goes, and just like waves us like this cute smile. And I'm like, she is so, like, it just makes me like want to do all the masculine things. I want to love you. I want to protect you. I want to friggin' do all the things, And when there's a sense of safety, when she's in, and I think you saw this, like in the aisleway at this event we're in, just dancing and just being free. It's really an energy of being. It's an energy of like freedom that I feel expressed of everything that she is and everything she's expressing. And so for me, when she's in her essence of freedom, and when we're going to go into this is a whole nother episode, but there's 7 archetypes of masculine and 7 archetypes of feminine. When you embody them all, we say that's the king and queen energy, But when I see her like oscillate between all these different archetypes, but when I see her being free and completely being who she is, there's something about the vulnerability, the openness, the essence of that makes me be like, I will do it anyway, but I will walk to hell and back for this person because there's an energy to her that's like, oh my gosh. And so literally like, I thought this yesterday at the gym. We were sitting there. No, when I came back from a podcast recording, they're at the pool with the girls, and I look over and Terren's like looking, and she's like, that smile, she's like waving at me.
But
I'm like, I don't even know. It's not even like the fact that she waved and smiled, but it's the energy in which it's that, and when someone's in that energy space, you're just like, freaking A. But, and that's what's so cool is, and we'll get into this in another episode, but we've established foundations, and what structure helps her feel the most able for her to be herself completely.
Yeah.
And if you're single, this is what's really interesting, or if you're in a relationship, you want to embody your authenticity. Because I think when you are being who you are, everything will fall into the proper proximity, which also means some things may go back a little and you're like, oh, wait, hold on. I really wanted that though. And it's like, but when you're living in your authenticity, everything that's truly yours cannot be taken away from you. I really believe that what's truly yours cannot be taken away from you, including relationships if you're living in your authenticity. Because if you're living in pure love-based, essence, all the things that you are, then I believe in all areas, relationships, friendships, all the things will start to align themselves and you'll start attracting all the people that are your people and everything will start aligning. And the more I am myself, the more I start attracting more of my people. And I think there's something beautiful about the question is, how can I create such a safe container for Terrin to be that free? And yesterday, our little one, she's 8 years old. She's in another room singing, what was the song she was singing?
I don't know.
It was like, you are my sunshine, my only sunshine.
She's
it was like,
so cute.
Just like cute. And I said, isn't it cool that she feels safe enough in a space where she can just sing that song? That's her body saying, I feel safe enough. I'm not worried about anybody, but you make me happy when skies are gray. And it's like just singing this song. And I'm like, and I said, to me, being aware of the spectrum between fear to love, and where are we on this in our relationship, and where are we on this individually? And when I'm being aware of that, it's so beautiful. So when I see Terrin in her flow and her being, I'm like, oh, cool. She's being who she is. It's a being.
Yeah.
And I think that's beautiful.
It's interesting because, women that I work with, a lot of them will ask me, well, how can I be in my feminine if I'm not in a relationship? And this is a 2-part answer, is you can absolutely be and embody your feminine when you were not in a relationship. When you were single, that was part of my whole journey and it was a beautiful time. I was just telling Henry, I was reflecting on that whole journey and how just what a hard but beautiful time it was. Like I love it so much. And I look back at it with so much love to embody just my true authenticity and my feminine. And when the feminine is in relationship with the masculine, romantically. There's a whole nother evolution of your femininity and your expression in relationship in all different ways, in all different aspects, that it's a level that we can't reach on our own, in my belief. The feminine has to be in relationship with healthy, safe masculinity to get her to that elevation.
And what's
as
really
well.
cool about that too is we really believe in, and this is probably a little different than what other people say out there, is we believe there's a beautiful safety of that masculine feminine integration within ourselves. How do I create safety? How do I love myself so deeply that I don't have these segmented parts? I'll share a story in another episode about this experience I had at a Tony Robbins event with this energy worker and the integration within myself. But one thing I learned during that was like, I didn't really fully embody the masculine feminine energy within myself. That when I was being in my masculine, there was a compassionate side. It's like, Henry, you might be too much. When I was being in my feminine masculine, like, dude, come on, you got to go out and get stuff done. So there was always this inner tension point because I wasn't integrated within myself. But also in relationship, there's a whole nother level, because it's like, whether you believe in the divine being a core foundation where like, you always got my back, you always love me, you always are there for me. There's always an energy of safety, right? Creating that energy within that relationship, but also within, especially here too, is if you get hurt in relationship, you heal in relationship. And I think all of us can safely say, because we're human beings and we live on a planet of very imperfect beings, whether it's parental or whether it's relational or whether it's I was hurt in school, whether we're in kindergarten and the person didn't chase us at recess and we developed a belief that we weren't good enough because they didn't chase us at recess, right? Like we all have relational wounds. And I think that if you get hurt in relationship, we'll get into this in another episode, but there's beautiful things about trauma healing, about co-regulation, and beautiful things that you can heal in relationship. And one of the beautiful things that we're going to be talking about is how to heal in relationship, how to heal within a relationship of ourselves and other people. But we just want to say this in closing. Wow, we just decided to punch our microphones and land it. We're excited. I talk with my hands, so I'm like, well, yeah, I'll get passionate.
It's hard to like.
Is the idea of we want you to know that it's possible. I think it's Tony Robbins that said, you need these 4 things to go after anything. You need to believe that it's possible. You need to believe there's a way to get there. You need to believe that you can take that way there. You need to believe that it's worth it. If you're missing one of those things, you're not going to chase it. You're just going to pretend to chase it, but you're never going to allow yourself to go forward. Because honestly, with all the pain that we have, some of us may not feel like it's worth it. So we put up these walls, and the same walls that keep pain out are the same walls that keep love out, right? But if you believe that it's possible, if you believe there's a way to get there, you believe that you could take that way there, and you believe that it's worth it, then you absolutely will chase it. And you are all deserving of the greatest love, because we're here, like Frank Anderson talks about, we're here to be loved, to develop love, to grow in love. Love is the essence, right? And Love Uncensored is also love authentically. Love with all of you, love with the good, the bad, the ugly, and love me where I'm at, and love me enough not to keep me there. And so our goal in this podcast is to give you hope and let you know that 2 people, we found each other a little bit later in life than we wanted to, but it was absolutely possible, which I didn't think it was. Is there a way to get there? We were telling you there absolutely is. We've done it with so many amazing couples in all aspects of things. We've seen sparks come back, people that are single, call in relationships. Is there a way for you to get there? Absolutely. And is it worth it? Tell me what else is more worth it than learning and embodying love. We were sitting with a couple that is in the billionaire realm, and the lady looks at him and goes, I would rather live in a trailer and be loved by you than have all the houses we have and not be loved by you. And he loved her and she loved him, but the energy and the polarity wasn't fully there. And there's nothing more important than love. And so we want to give you that hope, and we want to let you know that it is possible, that extraordinary love is real, and that you can absolutely get it. And as we take this journey on this podcast in the realm that we teach, and we invite you to join us on this journey, the good thing about love is it's ever expanding. We feel like we've learned so much, and we're constantly learning. So we're just really grateful.
Yeah.
Want to end with any closing remarks?
I guess mine is just knowing that, relationships are the foundation of everything in life. And this work is so powerful and so beautiful and so impactful. And I just know what it's done for my life. So I'm just so excited for the journey of Love Uncensored. Yes. I'm excited to get even more uncensored.
Wow. All right. Yeah.
No.
As we close this out, we just want to say thank you for listening. We're just going to open up for questions, anybody here. And we're going to grow. We didn't really we kind of let people know we're doing it live, but we're probably going to open it up to do more live stuff and more interactive stuff and more cool coaching and breakthrough sessions and interventions. But in this topic, before we close out, is there any questions that you guys have that are here that maybe you have that we'd love to answer? I was like, since we're here, let's go for it.